Hello everyone, Miss Gab here. Today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite Bible stories. It's Balaam and his donkey, and in this Bible story, we have a donkey that talks. And no, it's not Donkey from Shrek, it's a different donkey, and I'm so excited to tell you the full story. Let's get with it. This particular story starts in Numbers 22, verses 21 through 39, and I'm reading from the International Children's Bible. Balaam got up next morning. He put a saddle on his donkey. Then he went to the Moabite leaders. But God became angry because Balaam went. So the angel of the Lord stood on the road to stop Balaam. Balaam was riding his donkey, and he had two servants with him. The donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road. The angel had a sword in his hand. So the donkey left the road and went into the field. Balaam hit the donkey to force her back on the road. Later, the angel of the Lord stood on the narrow path between two vineyards. There were walls on both sides. Again, the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, so the donkey walked close to one wall. This crushed Balaam's foot up against the wall, so he hit her again. The angel of the Lord went ahead again. The angel stood at the narrow place. It was too narrow to turn left or right. The donkey saw the angel of the Lord, so she lay down under Balaam. Balaam was very angry and hit her with his stick. Then the Lord made the donkey talk. She said to Balaam, "What have I done to you to make you hit me 3 times?" Balaam answered the donkey, "You have made me look foolish. I wish I had a sword in my hand. I would kill you right now." But the donkey said to Balaam, "I am your very own donkey. You have ridden me for years. Have I ever done this to you before?" He said no. Then the Lord let Balaam see the angel. The angel of the Lord was standing on the road with his sword in his hand, and Balaam bowed face down on the ground. The angel of the Lord asked Balaam, "Why have you hit your donkey 3 times? I have stood here to stop you. What you are doing is wrong." The donkey saw me. She turned away from me 3 times. If she had not turned away, I would have killed you by now. But I would have let her live. Then Balaam said to the angel of the Lord, "I have sinned. I did not know you were standing in the road to stop me. I am wrong. I will go back." The angel of the Lord said to Balaam, "Go with these men, but say only what I tell you." So Balaam went with Balak's leaders. Balak heard that Balaam was coming, so he went to go meet him at Ar in Moab. It was beside the Arnon at the edge of his country. Balak said to Balaam, "I have asked you before to come quickly. Why didn't you come to me? I am able to reward you well." But Balaam answered, "I have come to you now, but I can't say anything. I can only say what God tells me to say." Then Balaam went to Balak with Kerith Huzo. Before I dissect this story and talk further about what this means to us as children of God, here are some things to know. First thing, this happened right after the Exodus. Do you remember when Moses freed the Israelites out of Egypt? This is after that happened. The Israelites are in the desert in the 40 years, and they are wandering in the land because they have nowhere to go. They have no home. So they are wandering around. And as they are wandering around, they are very close to Moab land, which is where the king feels threatened. The king of Moab is threatened by the Israelites being near his land because he knows that the Israelites believe in a God who loves them very much. And because this God loves his people so much, he has killed his enemies. And because this king is scared of what God might do to him, he decides that it's going to be a good idea to curse the Israelites, which is where our story picks up. The king of the Moabites was so threatened by the presence of the Israelites near him that he hired Balaam and other false prophets or pagan prophets so that they would curse Israel. Balaam was a pagan prophet who practiced divination and other magic acts, and he led Israel into apostasy, and that means that he actually made some Israelites abandon or renounce their religious belief. Not only was Balaam a pagan prophet, he was also a greedy and unscrupulous man, which Peter and Jude later comment on in other books of the Bible. As you can see in verse 38, the king promises him riches, and that's why he's there. As he's on his way to do his job to get his money and to curse the Israelites, he is shocked and mad and scared that this donkey is not pushing him forward and taking him where he wants to be. And when he hits the donkey, that's when, and she talks, that's when the angel appears. Immediately, when he starts hitting his donkey and she starts talking, the angel appears to him and says, "Hey, you should not hit your donkey. I was gonna kill you, but because she stopped, I didn't kill you." And immediately Balaam in verse 34 says, "I have sinned. I did not know you were standing in the road to stop me. If I am wrong, I will go back." Balaam immediately knew that he was doing something wrong. He knew he was guilty of not just hitting his donkey, but also of wanting to curse Israel. It was through grace in his donkey that the angel of the Lord didn't kill Balaam and instead let him go to the meeting with the other men, but under one condition, to only say what the angel of the Lord was going to tell him. Now, here are some key takeaways. Number one, not everyone who speaks words of truth or blessing are from God. Like I mentioned earlier, during this time, Balaam was considered a prophet, but he was a pagan prophet. A lot of people believed what he said and they thought that he had divine powers and artistry because of what other people said, but he wasn't a prophet from God. He was a pagan prophet who did bad things. In modern day, this happens. Sometimes there's people who say that they are prophet or who we really give them a lot of power and certainty over because other people say that they are indeed a man or a woman or a person of God, but not everyone who speaks words of truth or blessing are from God. Sometimes it's just coming from a different source. Why it's so important to pray for discernment so you can tell who is and who isn't from God. Lesson number 2, the love of money can cause us to do terrible things. Balaam was on his way to curse Israel because Balak, the Moabite king, promised him riches and money. You can see it in verse 37 where he says, "I am able to reward you well. Why are you late?" This part of the conversation is really important because we see that this is Balaam's job to curse Israel. In exchange for what? For money. And number 3, God can use anyone and anything. Verse 38 tells us that Balaam went back to Balak and told the king, "I must speak only what God puts in my mouth," which just goes to show that God can use anyone, even a donkey and a rebellious prophet, to do his will and speak his truth. I love this story because I just think about myself and my dogs, and I think I would be really, really spooked if I did something so wrong that my dog could talk to me and say, "Hey, you're acting really, really bad, and God is gonna do something bad to you if I don't speak up." And I think that that is really, really crazy and really magical, and it just shows the power and the will of our God and his range. And again, lesson number 3, that God can use anyone and anything, even a donkey, and maybe one day even our dogs, even our pets. During family time, I would like to know what your favorite Bible story is and what you would do if your pets, whether that be your cat or your dog or maybe even your fish, what you would do if they talked to you. I'll see you next week. Bye.